आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम। नगर नगर ये ग्राम और ये गलियारे, भरने इनमें नवजीवन के उजियारे। नगर नगर ये ग्राम और ये गलियारे, भरने इनमें नवजीवन के उजियारे। बार बार हम दोहराते हैं यही कसम, यही कसम, यही कसम। आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम। हमें हटाना घर घर से अंधियारा है, हमें तोड़नी पाखंडों की कारा है। हमें हटाना घर घर से अंधियारा है, हमें तोड़नी पाखंडों की कारा है। सच को कहने वाली चलती रहे कलम, चलती रहे कलम। आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम। कदम मिलाकर नर नारी सब और बढ़े, ज्ञान और विज्ञान नए सोपान चढ़े। कदम मिलाकर नर नारी सब और बढ़े, ज्ञान और विज्ञान नए सोपान चढ़े। देना है संदेश यही हमको हरदम, यही हमको हरदम। आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले।
Namaskar everybody. I am Dr. Anshu Arora from Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Noida. I would like to convey my regards to organizers and participants who are part of this orientation program. For me, it is a matter of great pride to address and interact with India's finest minds of media education fraternity. That is why I will start with paying my gratitude to PRSI and Ajit Pathak ji for including me in the eminent list of speakers.
In this video lecture, we are going to talk about public relations research, concepts and challenges.
Research makes communication a two-way process while collecting information from publics rather than one way, which is a simple dissemination of information. It also allows to engage in dialogue with publics, understanding their beliefs and values and working to build understanding on the part of the internal workings and policies of the organization. The scholars find that two-way communication is generally more effective than one-way communication, especially in the instances where the organization is heavily regulated by government or confronts a turbulent environment in the form of changing industry trends or activist groups. Research also makes public relations activities strategic by ensuring that communication is specifically targeted to the consumer's needs or wants. Without conducting the research, the public relations is based on experience or instinct, neither of which plays large role in strategic management. This type of research prevents us from wasting money on communication that are not reaching the intended public or are not doing the job that we have designed them to do. Research also helps us to show the results, to measure the impact, and to refocus our efforts on those numbers. For example, if an initiative is taken which is not working on a certain public, we can show that ineffectiveness statistically and communication can be redesigned or eliminated. Thus, we can direct our funds towards more successful elements of the PR initiative. Without research, PR would not be a true management function. It would not be strategic or part of executive strategic planning, but would regress to days of simple press agentry, following hunches and instincts to create publicity. As a true management function, public relations uses research to identify issues and engage in problem solving, to prevent and manage crises, to make organization responsive and responsible to their public, and to create a better organizational policy, and to maintain long-term relations with the public. A thorough knowledge of research methods and extensive analysis of data also allows PR practitioners a seat in the dominant coalition and a way to illustrate the value and worth of their activities. In this manner, research is the strategic foundation of modern PR. Every message you share with the marketplace either attracts attention, it repels attention, or it gets lost in the shuffle. Whether you realize it or not, the daily decisions of your clients are hugely affected by who they are and how they view the world. That's why it is important to consider your audience when you're planning the marketing of your business. For example, what if I had a product that I wanted to market to the top salespeople in a real estate office? Now, salespeople are typically goal oriented and like to present the outward appearance of success. If I offered a product that was helpful for their business yet slightly clunky and ugly, it would be really tough to convince successful realtors to use it. The same theory works for your marketing messages. Your customers need to feel like you understood them and are providing solutions that make sense in their world. It helps you to think of customers as a neighbor or a friend or even a character in a movie. By writing a detailed description of your intended customer, you will have a better sense of what they would find interesting to read and what would persuade them to try your product or service. Now, understanding demographics and data is very, very important. It is the first step to hit the web for some basic research. While products and services can be marketed to everyone on the planet, there are usually some factors that make more sense to others. When you think about your ideal customer, what basic parameters come to your mind? Are your consumers young or old? Do they live in the city or in the suburbs? Would your company appeal to men, women, or both equally? Does your product require that consumers have higher amounts of disposable income? Now, defining these basic demographic details helps your company determine how many people fit into your target market. Similarly, understanding their background and lifestyle is a important step to define your audience. It considers where they have been and where they are going to identify a pattern of motivations. Is your audience married or single? Are they workaholics or weekend warriors? What is their highest level of education? Does they prefer dogs or cats? Do they vacation at the beach or the mountains? Do they value health and physical fitness? This is where the data starts to take shape and your character's lifestyle begins to emerge. It is important to make reasonable guesses that are based on data and use your best judgment to avoid making unrealistic generalizations. For example, if you know one yoga instructor that likes to drive sports cars, it doesn't necessarily means that one yoga instructor that likes to drive sports car, it doesn't mean that all the yoga instructors drive sports cars. It's also tempting to presume that all yoga instructors could drive a hybrid car, but that too is unlikely generalization. So having an accurate description of your audience justifies that there is enough demand for your product or service. So it is important to have a true understanding of your client's lifestyle and background. Let us now look into the importance of marketing research. The most important task for a marketer is to get the right product at the right place with the right price to the right person. Now, besides, it was also necessary to go back and find whether the consumer is getting optimum satisfaction so that the consumer remains loyal. Now, these aspects make it imperative for the marketers to conduct marketing research. The following points explain the need and importance of marketing research. It helps in identifying new market opportunities for existing and new products. It provides information on market share, nature of competition, customer satisfaction levels, sales performances, and channels of distribution. This helps the firms in solving their problems. The next benefit of marketing research is that it helps in formulating marketing strategies. Today, the markets are no more local, they have become global. The manufacturers find it difficult to contact customers and control distribution channels. The competition is equally severe. The consumer needs are difficult to predict. Therefore, market segmentation is a very complicated task in such wide markets. The marketing intelligentsia provides thorough marketing research, not only helps in framing but also in implementing these marketing strategies. Market research also helps in determining consumer needs and wants. The market has become customer centric. However, large scale production needs intermediaries for mass distribution. Due to the prevalence of multi channels of distribution, there is an information gap. The marketing research helps in collecting information on consumers from structured distribution research and helps in making marketing consumer oriented. Marketing research also helps for effective communication mix. In an era of micro rather than mass marketing, communication plays a very important role. Marketing research uses promotional research to study media mix, advertising effectiveness, and integrated communication tools. Research on such aspects will help in promoting effectively a company's product in the market. Market research also helps in improving selling activities. It is used to analyze and evaluate performances of a company within a market. It also studies effectiveness of a sales force. It helps in identifying sales territories. Such information helps the companies in identifying areas of shortcoming in the sales. It also examines alternative research methods for the distribution of goods. It also helps for sales forecasting. The most challenging task for any production manager is to keep optimum level of inventory. However, production is undertaken in anticipation of demand. Therefore, forecast of sales is required. Therefore, marketing research helps in sales forecasting by using market share method, sales for estimate method and jury method. This can also help in fixing sales quotas and marketing plans. Another important benefit of marketing research is to revitalize brands. It is used to study and find out the existing brand position. It finds out the recall value of brands. It explores the possibilities of brand extension or prospects of changing existing brand names. The main purpose of marketing is to create brand loyalty. Now, marketing research helps in developing the techniques to popularize and retain brand loyalty. Marketing research also helps to facilitate smooth introduction of new products. It helps in testing the new products in one or two markets on a small scale. This helps in finding out consumer response to new products and to develop a suitable marketing mix. It reveals the problems of the customers regarding new products. Thus, it controls the risk involved in introducing a new product in the market. Last but not the least, it helps in managerial decision making. Marketing research plays a vital role in the decision making process by supplying relevant, up to date, and accurate data to the decision makers. The managers need up to date information to access what their customer wants and needs, the market situation, the technological changes, and extent of competition. Now, if you see whatever problem is at hand, problem analysis is an essential step of any PR research process. What is the real issue? Do people know who you are? Do people know what you ought to do? Do you have the customers? Do you not have the right customers? Who or what is causing the particular issue? And what is the obstacle or the opportunity? A research problem is a specific issue, difficulty, contradiction, or gap in knowledge that you will aim to address in your research. You might look for practical problems aimed at contributing to change or theoretical problems aiming at expanding knowledge. You should bear in mind that some research will do both of these things, but usually the research problem focuses on one or the other. The type of research problem you choose depends on your broad topic of interest and the type of research you want to do. To analyze any problem, you need to identify the core problem. You need to identify possible contributing factors and determine relationship between the problem and the contributing factors. You also need to regroup the contributing factors into broad categories where appropriate. And further, you decide to focus and scope of the research. Any problem or any crisis can be seen as an opportunity. It is said that every problem is an opportunity in disguise. By John Adams. The next step is to formulate the goals and objectives. Goals. There is a difference between the goals and the objectives. Goals are the general things you are trying to do to increase the awareness of your brand, whereas objectives are more specific and measurable for the desired outcome. For example, you need to increase the visits to our website by 15% in the month of September and October. Now, this is very precise and specific. The next step is formulating the key messages. What is it that you want to say? For example, you want to seek an apology or a service you want to offer, what is your platform, and why people should vote for you. These are very, very important key messages. Now, evaluation is a very, very important aspect throughout the PR process, and evaluation is done in the beginning of the campaign, during the campaign, and post campaign once the campaign is over. What is the importance of evaluation? Evaluation and follow-up helps us to see whether our efforts are going in the right direction, whether you want to make some adjustment in the middle, whether you want to change what you want to need to make the campaign more effective, and next steps as to what to do to maintain your image or brand, etc.
A research problem is a specific issue, difficulty, contradiction, or gap in knowledge that you will aim to address in your research. You might look for practical problems aimed at contributing to change or theoretical problems aiming at expanding knowledge. You should bear in mind that some research will do both of these things, but usually the research problem focuses on one or the other. The type of research problem you choose depends on your broad topic of interest and the type of research you want to do. To analyze any problem, you need to identify the core problem. You need to identify possible contributing factors and determine relationship between the problem and the contributing factors. You also need to regroup the contributing factors into broad categories where appropriate. And further, you decide to focus and scope of the research.
The next type of research could be internal or external research. In the internal research, we examine the organization and look at how the problem can be solved by fixing what we are doing. In the external research, we examine the environment and the public, and we look at the factor that will the problem be solved through an external campaign. Internal and external researchers. External researchers are well-established research firms that are available nowadays to conduct the research. These firms have experienced and qualified specialist researchers to conduct the research. Computers go for outside researchers if the companies go for outside researchers if either they don't have their own research department or they think that the outside researcher will be a better option. There are different advantages. They have plenty of experience of working with different types of organizations. They are well conversant with sophisticated research tools and knowledge. Their research will be unbiased. There are a lot of disadvantages of external researchers, such as they take more time, they are not aware of the company's norms and processes or the culture, they are expensive, and they might face some difficulty in acceptance from the employees. Now the next type of research could be formal or informal research. Research in PR can be formal or informal. The formal research normally takes place in order to generate numbers and statistics that we can use both target communications and measure the results. This formal research is also used to gain a deeper and qualitative understanding of the issue of concern and to ascertain the range of consumer responses and to elicit in-depth opinion data. Formal research is planned research of a quantitative or qualitative nature, normally asking specific questions about topics of concern for the organization. Now, this formal research is both formative at the outset of a PR initiative and evaluative to determine the degree of change attributable to public relation activities. Informal research, on the contrary, is collected on an ongoing basis by most public relation managers from sources both inside and outside the organizations. Informal research usually gathers information and opinions through conversations. It consists of asking questions, tailoring messages, talking to members of publics or employees in the organization to find out their concerns, reading emails for customers or comments, etc. Now we come to the quantitative and qualitative research. There are different methods of quantitative data collection. There could be internet-based surveys, telephone surveys, mail surveys, content analysis, comment cards and feedback forms, or warranty cards. Usually in these kind of warranty cards, the demographic information of the buyers is collected. In quantitative research, the entire public you wish to understand or make statements about is called the population. The population might be women over 40, Democrats, Republicans, purchasers of a competitor's product, or any other group that you would like to study. From that population, you would select a sample to actually contact with questions. Now, there are different types of sampling methods. Probability samples can be randomly drawn from list. What is sampling? Sampling is the selection of a subset or a statistical sample from within a statistical population to estimate characteristics of the whole population. Now, sampling helps to make statistical inferences about the population. Sampling can also be called as a process which is used in statistical analysis in which a predetermined number of observations are taken from a larger population. The methodology used to sample from a larger population depends on the type of analysis being performed, but it may include random sampling or systematic sampling. Essentially, sampling consists of obtaining information from only a part of a large group or population so that to infer about the whole population. The objective of sampling is thus to secure a sample which will represent the population and reproduce the important characteristics of the population under study as closely as possible. The principal advantages of sampling as compared to complete enumeration of the population are reduced cost, greater speed, greater scope, and improved accuracy. Many who insist that the only accurate way to survey a population is to make a complete enumeration overlook the fact that there are many sources of errors in complete enumeration and that 100% enumeration can be highly erroneous as well as nearly impossible to achieve. In fact, a sample can yield more accurate results, and because the sources of errors connected with reliability and training of field workers, clarity of instruction, mistakes in measurement and recording, badly kept measuring instruments, misidentification of sampling units, biases of enumerators, and mistakes in the processing and analysis of data can be controlled more effectively. The smaller size of sample makes it more effective. Moreover, it is important to note that the precision of the estimates obtained from certain types of samples can be estimated from the sample itself. Biased samples. Biased samples occur when one or more parts of the populations are favored over the other parts. The two types of biases are the convenient sample, which includes only people who are easy to reach. A good sample is only one that is unbiased and one that is representative of the entire population and one that gives each thing an equal opportunity or chance of being chosen. The difference between population and a sample. Whenever we hear the term population, the first thing that strikes our mind is a large group of people. In the same way, in statistics, population denotes a large group consisting of elements having at least one common feature. The term is often contrasted with a sample, which is nothing but a part of a population that is so selected to represent the entire group. The principal steps in a sample survey. In any sample survey, we must first decide on the type of data to be collected and determine how adequate the results should be. Secondly, we must formulate the sampling plan for each of the characters for which data are to be collected. We must also know how to combine the sampling procedures for the various characters so that no duplication of fieldwork occurs. Thirdly, the fieldwork must be efficiently organized with adequate provision for supervising the work of the field staff. Lastly, the analysis of data collected should be carried out using appropriate field techniques and the report should be drafted giving full details of the basic assumptions made, the sampling plan and the results of the statistical analysis. Next we come to the definition of non-probability sampling. The samples collected by a course of via which the entire members belonging to the sample shouldn't have any chance of getting selected. That means each of the sample does not have an equal chance or opportunity of being chosen in the representative sample. The main difference between the two methods of sampling is in their basis. The probability sampling techniques rely on the statistical theory, whereas the non-probability techniques rely on determination of degree to which the sample is representative to the whole population. Such determination in the latter makes the method subjective, while the former is an objective method.
Now we'll discuss about the difference between probability and non-probability sampling in detail. In probability sampling, the sample is selected at random, whereas in non-probability sampling, the sample selection is based on the subjective judgment of the researcher. In probability sampling, everyone in the population has an equal chance of being selected. In non-probability sampling, not everyone has an equal chance to participate. In probability sampling, we use when sampling bias has to be reduced, whereas in non-probability sampling, the researcher does not consider sampling bias. Next, probability sampling is useful when the population is diverse, whereas non-probability sampling is useful when the population has similar traits. Probability sampling is used to create an accurate sample, whereas non-probability sample does not accurately represent the population. In terms of finding the right respondents, it is not easy in probability sampling, whereas finding respondents is easy in non-probability sampling.
PR managers often use qualitative research to support quantitative findings. Qualitative research can be designed to understand the views of specific public and to have them elaborate on their beliefs or values that stood out in quantitative analysis. For example, if quantitative research showed a strong agreement with the particular statement, that statement could be read to focus group participants and ask them to agree or disagree with this statement and explain their rationale and thought process behind this particular choice. In this manner, qualitative researchers can understand complex reasoning and dilemmas in much greater detail that can only through results yielded by a survey. Another reason to use qualitative research is that it can provide data that researchers did not know when they needed. For instance, a focus group may take an expected turn, and the discussion may yield statements that the researcher had not thought to include on a survey questionnaire. Sometimes unknown information or unfamiliar perspectives arise through qualitative studies that are ultimately extremely valuable to PR in understanding the issues impacting the different publics. Now we are going to discuss the benefits of qualitative research. Qualitative research allows for participants to speak for themselves rather than to use the terminology provided by the researchers. This benefit can often yield a greater understanding that results in far more effective messages than when the public relations practitioners attempt to construct views of publics based on qualitative research alone. Using the representative language of members of a certain public often allows PR to build a more respectable. The second major kind of research method normally used in PR relation industry is qualitative research. Now, qualitative research generally the most important kind of research normally used in PR industry is qualitative research. It generates in-depth quality information that allows us to truly understand public opinion, but it is not statistically generalizable. Qualitative research is enormously valuable because it allows us to truly learn the experiences, values, and viewpoints of our public. It also provides ample quotes to use as an evidence or illustration in our strategy documents, and sometimes it even results in slogans or fodder for use in PR messages. Qualitative research is particularly adept at answering questions from PR practitioners that begin how or why. This form of research allows the researcher to ask the participants to explain their rationale for decision making, belief systems, values, thought processes, and so on. It allows the researchers to explore complicated topics to understand the meaning behind them and the meanings that participants ascribe to certain concepts. For example, a researcher might ask a participant, what does the concept of liberty mean to them? And he may seek detailed explanations. There are different methods of qualitative data collection. It could be in-depth interviews, focus groups, case studies, participant observation, monitoring complaints by emails and letters. Qualitative research also allows for participants to speak for themselves rather than to use terminology provided by the researchers. This benefit can often yield a greater understanding that results in far more effective messages than when public relations practitioners attempt to construct views of publics based on quantitative research alone. Using the representative language of members of a certain public often allows PRs to build a more respectful relationship with that public. For instance, animal rights activists often use the term companion animal instead of the term pet. That information could be extremely important to the organization, such as PETA. The next approach is the mixed methods or triangulation approach. Clearly, both quantitative and qualitative research have complementary and unique strengths. These two research methodologies should be used in conjunction whenever possible in PR research so that both the publics and the issues can be understood completely. Using both of these research methods together is called as mixed method approach, and the scholars generally agree that mixing the methods yields the most reliable research results. It is best to combine as many methods as possible to understand certain important issues and aspects, and by combining multiple focus groups from various cities with interviews of important leaders and quantitative survey of publics is an example of mixed method approach because it includes both quantitative and qualitative methodology. Using two or more methods of study is sometimes called as triangulation, meaning using multiple research methods to triangulate upon the underlying truth of how public view a particular issue. Now we will look at how surveys are important in the research. It is the easiest data collection method. It is difficult to remain unbiased. There could be a question bias. For example, do you agree? Don't you agree? What is your name? Where are you from? And what do you think? There could be a research bias. Research may project from your own ideals. There could be a sampling bias. For example, phone surveys, digital surveys, and physical surveys. The next method of data collection is content analysis. It is gathering and analyzing information that already exists. Then you compare information across different platforms or different time zones. Case studies, reports, and articles can be analyzed. Now these are the various steps involved in the content analysis process. You read through or examine the data and become familiar with it, and then you identify the coding units. What is a code? A code is a label used to identify connections between meaning and units. Then the data is analyzed by applying the coding units. Different categories and subcategories or groups of related codes are generated and analyzed. The next most important method is interview method. It is hard to quantify and report. It provides full insight into opinions and issues. You need to be aware there should be no bias and one must have close-ended questions. Interviewing is an art. You need to have interviewing skills. So before going for an interview, do your homework. Prepare the interviewees in advance on the interviews. Write down a list of questions that you want the interviewer to answer, working from the general to the specific. If taping, make sure that the person is comfortable with it and you have a good power supply. So these are the things you need to keep in mind before going for an interview.
Focus groups. A focus group is a group interview involving a small number of demographically similar people or participants who have other common traits or experiences. Now, their reactions to specific researcher or evaluator posed questions are studied. Focus groups are used in PR and marketing research to better understand people's reaction to products or services or participants' perceptions of shared experiences. These discussions can be guided or open. In PR or marketing research, the focus groups can explore a group's response to a new product or a service. They can elicit lessons learned and recommendations for performance improvement. The idea is for the researcher to understand the audience's reactions. If group members are representative of large population, those reactions may be expected to reflect the views of that larger population. Thus, focus groups constitute a research or evaluation method that researchers organize for the purpose of collecting qualitative data through interactive and directed discussions. It is important to know that as much possible about the thoughts and perceptions of an audience, a focus group is a good tool to use because a focus group requires a relatively small portion of time from a much smaller number of people than is the case with many other research methods. These efficiencies are usually particularly appreciated when engagement is required. The focus group as a data collection technique is widely used in PR research field, though the technique origin has from the market research. The typical objective of a focus group is not consensus or debate, but rather to generate ideas and provide opportunities for stakeholders to express their feelings on a particular topic. Formal focus groups have been around since 1940s, and during this time they have been used for an array of different topics to stimulate new ideas and concepts for both the researcher and the participants. Used to learn about the impressions of products and service effectiveness or certain management issues. And it is used to learn general information about a specific topic. It is also used to generate new hypotheses for future research opportunities, and it helps develop sound quantitative research approaches. Focus group is also used to learn how respondents communicate about topics of interest, what words they use, what concepts they understand, etc. It also helps to enhance the utility of survey content and delivery mechanisms. It also helps to determine what additional research tools may be useful for follow-up information collection. Focus groups better interpret previously obtained quantitative information. The focus group is used to develop effective survey questions. Information acquired in a focus group can reveal specific issues of interest, language, and terminology used by the population of interest, and new ideas that may have never been discovered. Such items can help a survey better resonate with the target population, subsequently yielding higher quality of data. Another approach that focus group uses as a primary method and a survey to guide its application. Now, along with a set of strengths, focus group has its own set of weaknesses. The challenges associated with focus groups are most often attributed to two main factors: the facilitator and the basic nature of group discussions. Research also suggests that group discussion can cause participant attributes to become more extreme, which could in turn result in greater unification of group opinions or polarize participants. Now, focus groups require self-disclosure by participants, but the views and values of participants may render certain topics off limits. The participants may also convey information that may portray themselves as more favorably, which could slightly distort gathered information. Certain emotionally charged issues may result in an argument. Therefore, a skilled facilitator and adequate advanced planning can lessen and possibly eliminate some of these weaknesses. Observation, as the name implies, is a way of collecting data through observing. Observation data collection method is classified as a participatory study because the researcher has to immerse himself in the setting where the respondents are while taking notes and or recording. Observation as a data collection method can be structured or unstructured. In structured or systematic observation, the data is conducted using specific variables and according to a predefined schedule. The unstructured observation, on the other hand, is conducted in an open and free manner, in a sense that there would be no predetermined objectives or variables. The advantages of observation data collection method include direct access to research phenomenon, high level of flexibility, and generating a permanent record of phenomenon to be referred to later on. At the same time, the observation method is disadvantaged with longer time requirements, high levels of observation bias, and impact of observer on the primary data. In a way, the presence of observer may influence the behavior of sample group elements. So it is important to note that the observation data collection method may be associated with certain ethical issues. There should be fully informed consent of the research participants. At the same time, the behavior of sample groups might change with negative implications on the level of research validity if they are notified about the presence of the observer. The primary best practice that needs to be followed is the inclusion of research measurement and evaluation as the core part of any public relations program. While there is no standard approach for how PR research should be conducted, but following best practices yields reliable and usable results. By following these basic guidelines, the research will provide the requisite insights for improved planning, effectiveness, and demonstration of the importance and value of strategically linked communication to organizational success. Through the implementation of these best practices, PR research can provide requisite insights for improved planning and effectiveness of PR campaigns. From a programmatic perspective, effective public relation planning is accomplished through the following steps. First is reviewing secondary research and establishing benchmarks. Second, establishing achievable goals. Third, by stating measurable objectives. Next, asking appropriate research questions, employing appropriate research methodologies, conducting programmatic research, and last but not the least, having the resources in place and the necessary budget.
National press kit and media relation process is completely digitized now, and you can see different brands and companies using virtual press rooms with all kind of media assets like brand companies and PR agencies have started to move in this direction. Of course, disruption started in the business before it reached the communication industries. Some of the examples show that how technology have changed in these directions and have helped some of the big names in the market to be the leaders in their fields, to become more consumer oriented and achieve greater success. And if you look at Amazon, it is one of the most amazing companies that have constantly and relentlessly tried to analyze its business model and tried to disrupt it before being disrupted by others. As said by Sergey Netsin, who is a chair professor of global technology and innovation at INSEAD, designing transformational media business models. Now, this technology has helped to establish a direct relationship with the customers. It was very disruptive, and Financial Times has significantly benefited from this disruption. Now, the PR industry has to be innovative, think of new and modern solutions quickly, and know what the consumers want and why it is important to their clients and relevant to their clients' businesses. Now, PR is also disruptive because it has to be integrated. PR departments and agency teams have to have the same goals as any other departments in the company, for example, marketing, finance, sales, IT, etc. This allows for all communication flows from various departments to be coordinated and have one voice of customer communication where the goals are aligned and the success is guaranteed. Through change and innovation, professionals can be more creative and find the best solutions for their clients. Some of these trends have affected the PR industries. PR is one area in which storytelling is very much useful. The storyteller's job is to tell the brands or the company's stories in interesting and attractive ways to appeal their audiences. Thereby, it allows generate interest, raise awareness, and boost the particular brand and their corporate image. With technology influencing the communication industry, social media, blogging, forums, applications is the natural way to talk about digital storytelling. Social media monitoring has been quite important in PR Every campaign strategy starts with a thorough research and analysis of topics, comments, opinions, publications, etc., and knowing what the people are saying about your client in social media is a key to building a strategy for telling your client stories to the masses. What's interesting about social media is the new approach PR professionals can use, meaning observing people's behaviors online and offline. Offline behavior is just as important to communication as people share pretty much everything online. There are new terms such as FOBO, fear of being offline, FOMO, fear of missing out, JOMO, FOJI, BROMO, etc. So, knowing people's jargon and their behavior helps PR professionals to shape their communication in a better way and to devise strategies and messages to communicate to the masses. This big data is essential for marketing and business and plays a pivotal role in disrupting the current state of PR. It helps to identify consumers that will be beneficial to brands or companies, or the data that enables the companies to see news related opportunities like newsjacking. At UP, we can see that they have developed a guide for newsjacking that helps the teams identify the news that is relevant and beneficial to clients and propose a newsjacking strategy approach. This guide has a few stages with steps to follow. Data allows anticipating the behavior of target groups because the insights help them build their most relevant buyers' personas. Based on such insights, the PR professionals should build their communication strategy and plan for their clients and craft content and messages, but they are also able to redefine the messages according to the changing consumer behaviors. But not only that, as messages can be personalized to target specific groups with the content, they need to look for the right moment. As PR professionals and academicians, we have to keep updated with the disruptive technologies that have affected public relations. For example, the disruption in PR happens because of technology, gadgets, automation of processes, social media, or innovation in terms of products and services. Now, this affects the different stages of planning, executing, and managing communication strategies. Today, we are talking not only about pure PR, but usually these are associated with media relations. We also need to look at how these disruptive technologies have revolutionized the way we communicate to our public. We also need to look into account the different sentiments of consumers and practically reconstructing the content through the analytical approach. This massive shift to the digital room has major impact on the research arena in public relations. We also need to look at how Corona has affected our lives to a greater extent and how PR practices are being affected by post-COVID. We are still in the middle of this crisis and we need to look at how PR is going to be affected by the third wave. We can see a lot of disruption in public relations sector also. In its roots, the disruption has changed the way the business and its model are working, the way people are thinking and acting, and it requires academicians to adapt to the new ways of communication. This disruption has led to the emergence of new ideas and expectations, and it requires all the PR related academicians to be creative and more innovative in their approach It also requires us to keep up to date and stay ahead of the current trends and be competitive and desirable for the public. Now, this disruption in public relation has happened because of the technology, gadgets, automation of processes, social media, or different innovations in terms of products and services. This has affected the stages of planning, executing, and managing the communication strategies. The rise of technologies has changed the communication industry, and now we are also talking about the digital communication. So overall digitization is taking up major part in people's lives, from smartphones, tablets, personal computers and gadgets to voice recognition systems, personal finance, health tools, and many more. It is therefore no surprise that the PR and marketing industries have been changing. From the way PR professionals talk to the people, be it through emojis, GIFs, stickers, and hashtags, to the way we use different channels such as social media, mobile applications, and native advertising, and the way the different types of content is generated and also distributed. In this big data analysis of consumer analysis, in this big data analysis of consumer behavior and interest, content marketing automation, and this is how this digital disruption challenges the different agencies to keep up with the technological development. While these innovation services and tools are taking over traditional PR functions. So we as researchers, we need to look at all these changes and keep up to date with the present change. So with this, we come to the end of the lecture. In the end, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me a chance to express my views, and it was a wonderful experience. And I would like to end it by the statement given by Gandhiji: be the change you want to look in the society. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. Thank you so much.